This is CBC Vancouver News.
Are you worried?
Yeah, fikr to hai, of course.
A Sikh activist says investigators warned him about a threat to his life months after a Surrey Gurdwara leader was shot dead. Plus,
we would expect in healthcare settings enhanced masking, and so we'll have details of that tomorrow.
BC's health minister hints at masking requirements returning to certain sectors with a press conference set for tomorrow. And
fish farms are certainly one of those biggest stressors and impacts that must be dealt with.
a collective call from First Nations leaders to the feds to follow through on a promise to close salmon farms. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. A newly released document suggests police in BC have been concerned about the safety of another Sikh activist in this province. Gurmeet Singh Toor is from the same Gurdwara as Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the activist gunned down outside his Gurdwara there in June. A murder Canada believes India was involved in. Now, Toor was allegedly warned by law enforcement about threats to his life. This is according to a newly disclosed duty to warn document. It says, Toor says it was delivered to his house by officials about a month ago. It's addressed to him and reads, quote, police have determined by one way or another of more investigative avenues that your life may be in peril, adding, at this time, we are unable to provide you with specific details of the threat. Now, CBC has reached out to RCMP multiple times to confirm this duty to warn was in fact issued. So far, no official confirmation from law enforcement, but we did speak to Toor himself about it. Take a listen to what he told us through a translator.
He feels that he is, after the warning, he is keeping more aware of everything, of his surroundings, and trying his best to stay safe.
Are you worried?
Yeah, fikr to hai, of course.
Toor is a senior member of the management committee at the same Surrey Gurdwara that Hardeep Singh Nijjar was president of. Of course, Nijjar was shot dead in the driveway outside the Gurdwara at the end of June. This new letter is dated nearly 2 months after that, on August 24th, weeks before there was a non-binding vote held in BC in support of an independent Sikh state known as Khalistan. The Indian government denies any involvement in Nijjar's death. That same government has viewed him as a terrorist, and the fallout from Canada's accusation has led to a collapse of relations between the two countries. Each has sent a diplomat home. India has also stopped processing visas for Canadians. The group Sikhs for Justice is calling on Canada to expel India's High Commissioner to Canada. Well, the province is hinting masking policies may be returning for certain sectors. BC's health minister says enhanced masking is to be expected in healthcare settings.
It's not a secret. We've been talking about this for about a month, that for the respiratory illness season in the fall, we would expect in healthcare settings enhanced masking, and so we'll have details of that tomorrow.
Masking in healthcare facilities became optional in April. Some health authorities in other provinces have recently brought back mask mandates in the healthcare sector. Now, this comes as COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths have all started creeping back up in BC. That has infectious disease experts emphasizing the importance of returning to certain measures. Frequent hand washing and masking when sick are being recommended.
Everyone should have a generous supply of home test kits to test themselves so that we can understand where spread is occurring and how often it is occurring, and to stay home if you test positive for a certain number of days until you're better. And I think that needs to be normalized. I think if people call in sick because they have respiratory illness, then that needs to be honored.
And it's not just with COVID. He's encouraging you stay home when sick with a flu or cold as well. A record wildfire season in BC has led to record spending with a ballooning projected deficit for the province. It's now grown to $6.7 billion. That's $2.5 billion more than was expected in the budget. But as Mira Baines reports, the government vows services will not be cut to make up for it.
Finance Minister Katrina Conroy revealed the province's first quarter fiscal update today. Top of mind, BC's recent wildfire season.
We are seeing record wildfire response costs, and we will spend what's required to fight the fires and keep people safe.
The province is projected to spend almost $1 billion this year on its response. Falling natural gas revenues have also led to an increase of $2.5 billion in the projected deficit. But Conroy says there are no plans to cut back the province's spending.
At this time, what we're doing is we're going to keep providing services to people the way we have been since 2017.
While the opposition party isn't critical of wildfire spending, BC United says better fiscal management is needed now.
This government seems to not be willing to make any adjustments whatsoever.
BC United says the province should be taking more prudent measures, especially as costs to build new infrastructure rise.
Remember, this update does not include the $1 billion cost overrun for the Surrey Hospital. We're fully expecting that the Burnaby Hospital of the same scope and scale.
However, the province has $5.5 billion in contingencies and $700 million available to respond to unanticipated expenses. The financial picture also revealed a big difference in housing expectations. While the housing minister was setting targets this week, 10 of the largest municipalities have been ordered to build more than 60,000 new units of housing over the next 5 years. The finance ministry isn't as ambitious, projecting about 42,000 new housing units per year, not much higher than the current average.
Well, right now we're being fairly prudent with our projections because of, as the staff have said, there's issues with labor supply and supplies.
There is more bad news. The fiscal update expects interest rates to stay high for a longer period during 2024. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Premier David Eby was at BCIT's Richmond campus tonight for a town hall on post-secondary education. The affordability crisis and its impact on BC students was top of mind for many.
We know we've got a lot more to do. We know that students are struggling out there. The food bank situation is unacceptable, that people don't have the food they need. One of the groups that we really hear about that are using food banks are international students. These are folks who are leveraging everything they have to cover tuition, and there's just no more.
He says the province plans to increase accessibility to education grants and also improve tuition disparity among colleges and universities. Well, SFU's Teaching Support Staff Union is set to strike tomorrow. They have 3 demands: increased wages to reflect the cost of living, a stop to uncompensated work, and pensions for sessional instructors. The union's most recent collective agreement expired in April of 2022. The decision to strike comes after 19 months of failed collective bargaining.
We've seen that the employer is still unwilling to bargain meaningfully with us on our fundamental issues. And so we need to take more serious job action. We need to escalate.
The union has 1,600 members that include teaching assistants, sessional instructors, and research assistants. They will all stop work, including tutorials, lectures, and grading, as of tomorrow morning. A surge in international migration is driving Canada's population growth to heights not seen in almost 70 years. As of July, the number of non-permanent residents living in Canada was up by 46% compared to the same time last year. That's the largest year-to-year increase on record. The overall population growth here in BC is just over 3%. Indigenous leaders from across the province are renewing the call on Ottawa to close salmon farms. Yasmin Gandam is looking at their collective concern that the federal government may be weakening its stance on protecting the sacred species.
123 First Nations gathering earlier today worried about the future of salmon in BC. The fish represent an integral piece of their culture and history.
It brings us together as families, sitting around tables or in smokehouses, talking to each other, talking about our culture, reinforcing who we are and how we're all interconnected to each other, to the salmon, to the environment, to the habitat.
The leaders say recent documents from Fisheries and Oceans Canada have them concerned the government may be pulling back on protecting salmon, approving 3 fish farm expansion projects between the years of 2019 and 2022.
Fish farms are certainly one of those biggest stressors and impacts that must be dealt with.
The closing of the farms has been a major issue of debate for years, with the majority of First Nations, as well as many scientists and environmental groups, saying the pens are linked to the transfer of disease to salmon, while the industry says close to 5,000 people rely on the farms for jobs.
Create employment across the province where we see reconciliation occur with the vast majority of First Nations. We see very clear environmental benefits, but most importantly, we get to see a sustained, focused effort to rehabilitate wild salmon.
And it's not just the Indigenous community who are concerned. The tourism industry also speaking out against open net pen fish farms.
If salmon were to disappear, the supernatural British Columbia brand and the tourism industry would crumble.
The First Nations leaders say government has failed to maintain salmon stocks. They're demanding not only the closure of open net salmon farms, but also for the Prime Minister to follow through on his promise to transition open net cage fish farms to land-based closed containment fish farming by 2025. We've reached out to the DFO for comment, but have not heard back in time for broadcast. Yasmin Gandham, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Coldplay was in Vancouver over the weekend, and their show is making headlines for a very unique reason. Frontman Chris Martin picked 10-year-old birthday boy Leo out of the crowd and performed an impromptu song just for him. Take a listen.
We got floor seats for my birthday. That was my birthday present. And me and my dad and my mom sort of just was like, excuse me, it's my birthday. And we were just pushing to the front. And I was on my dad's shoulders holding a big pink poster. And he was reading all the posters. And said, that young boy in the crowd, can you please come up here?
What's your name?
And he told me to wave up to the crowd. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wait, what?
What else did he do today on your birthday?
He would just ask me questions and started just making up words and was singing them.
That you're sitting with me.
And then he made a cool, good song.
I can't think of a better place to be when you turn 10.
It was just like, what? How is this happening? What is happening? Oh my gosh. It was just the best day ever.
We're coming to see Coldplay.
Well, coming up 3 years after the province issued a damning report, BC's nurses regulator is trying to tackle the problem of anti-Indigenous racism in the healthcare system. We'll have more on that after the break. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. A new organization in Calgary is cleaning up the city while at the same time providing a path for people experiencing homelessness to get back into the workforce. Joe Horwood has that story.
See how I picked that out of the crack?
Radicare Ventures started operating just last month. They hire people struggling to find traditional work for property maintenance.
Our general staff are hired from our partner agencies like Mustard Seed, Alpha House, The Alex, etc. And they get proper training on property maintenance like garbage pickup, needle disposal, bio-waste disposal, graffiti removal, pressure washing. We really serve as this transitional ground for employers so that we build these confidence in these employees so that if they do wish to pursue other careers in the future, they can use us as a reference and use the skills that they've learned from Radicare Ventures moving forward.
Besides income, Zhang says a job provides purpose.
Overall, I'm helping me, myself, and my family and the community.
One of Radicare's employees, Kevin Skanderup, says that gives people hope.
It starts putting things back into perspective, like, okay, yeah, you know what, I can have my own place, or maybe I can get a car, or maybe, you know, like, it's really nice what they've done here.
I have a lot to do, but I plan on driving a city bus for the new year.
Richard DuPont started working for Radicare last week.
If people in the community see me doing community service like that, that'll actually help me out a lot better because I put it on my resume that I did stuff for the community, and transit is nothing but community service.
DuPont says it's the best job he's had. His only complaint, he's not working enough. But Zhang says they're hoping more local businesses hire them so they can increase their staff.
There's the piece of glass that you were looking for.
And help more people get back on their feet. Joe Horwood, CBC News, Calgary.
All right. Welcome back. A Haida elder's harrowing experience in a BC hospital is once again drawing attention to anti-Indigenous racism in this province's healthcare system. As Angela Starrett reports, the nurses regulator is now trying to tackle the problem 3 years after the government put out a damning report.
On October 19, 2021, Penny Kerrigan landed at Mills Memorial Hospital on an air ambulance flight from Haida Gwaii in agony.
I was in extreme pain.
She was wheeled into a hospital room, given Tylenol, and left alone. When a nurse attended, Penny said it was under an air of suspicion.
Maybe because I came from an Indigenous community, a small Indigenous community, I felt that they thought that I was drug seeking.
Penny also said nurses were unnecessarily rough with her while administering blood samples.
I was crying. It hurt so bad. She just didn't care. It was violent. It was absolutely violent. And I was like so traumatized.
Penny's experience, laid out in a BC Human Rights Tribunal case filed the day after the visit, explains how she was discharged at 11 p.m.
And I go, where am I going to go? And what am I going to do? And she says, well, didn't you have a plan? Don't you have a voucher? And I said, well, what am I going to do? She said, call a cab.
Penny spent the night in a hotel in pain and alone. Come morning, Penny didn't want to go back to the Terrace Hospital. But her daughter pressed her, even called the hospital staff, pleading with them to treat her mom better.
She promised me that they'll be good, they'll take me in, and I will see the surgeon.
Because it turns out the pain was due to a widening of her appendix. She needed to see a surgeon to get it removed, or it could burst.
The doctor came, he examined me, and he told me he was sorry that, that they had missed the what was happening. And then he did surgery on me.
Penny's human rights complaint against Northern Health alleges anti-Indigenous discrimination by hospital staff. The tribunal issued a ruling in July approving Northern Health's application to add the doctor in charge of Penny's care as a defendant. Northern Health denies discrimination against Penny and claims its treatment of her was appropriate and reasonable. But the tribunal decision says that while Northern Health denies discrimination by its staff in this case, it acknowledges a long history of racism towards Indigenous people in BC, including in medical settings, something that is also acknowledged by the College of BC Nurses and Midwives.
It's so clear
the harms that have been created by a system that is intrinsically racist. And individuals acting within that system are driven to act in that way because of the fact that the system around them supports that behavior.
Johansson is the CEO of a body that sets standards for nurses. It manages the complaints process and is responsible for curriculum in educational institutions.
How come we're not hearing more about consequences or of a new modality that will lead to these behavioral changes a little bit faster so that Indigenous people aren't being so incredibly harmed to this level?
So it's a great question, right? It's how do you shift culture? So we're influencing the curriculum in nursing and midwifery programs. We are working with the health authorities in partnership and with Ministry of Health to identify educational resources that nurses and midwives should take, must take. But it's one thing for somebody to learn something. It's another thing for them to apply that learning.
That's something that's also fundamental to Penny.
Understanding, what happened to our people is really important. You can't learn that in 2 hours or 4 hours. It needs to be in all the medical curriculum, including doctors, nurses, the hospital administration, hospital cleaning staff, everybody.
Johansson says promising changes are on the way when the new Health Professions and Occupations Act is implemented. It lists anti-Indigenous racism as a serious harm.
It actually requires registrants to demonstrate anti-racist behavior or to be non-discriminatory. So it gives more teeth, I think, and clearer certainty around what constitutes a serious harm.
Something the Minister of Health says has been a long time coming.
It's taken way, way too long. Why? Because of the depth and the impact of that racism over time. And so the current law, which we've been functioning over, of course, and people have been living in for a long time, and the current law is about 30 years. There was a predecessor law. There was a law before that for health professions. Didn't do that. And whatever we think of those times, that wasn't seen as a priority or a need at that time. And that's clearly wrong.
The new legislation passed its third reading this month and could come into effect early next year. Angela Sterrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
You're looking at a shot of a double rainbow captured by our CBC Tower Cam earlier today. So just how long will the rain stick around? Well, we'll tell you with the 5-day forecast coming up next.
So where did you find them?
We found him on Kincaid Road.
And,
beachfront.
oh yeah.
Robin Campbell is about to begin another day at the office. A starving, dehydrated seal needs his help.
See that he's looked after. Thanks, Claire.
Campbell runs the North Island Wildlife Recovery Center near Parksville, a hospital which treats 700 birds and animals every year, nearly every one a victim of human activity.
I don't get very many animals brought in that have been injured naturally. Ours are usually because of mercury poisoning, lead poisoning, hit by vehicles, fried by hydro lines, gunshot. We don't get any naturally really brought in here, so those ones don't make it here.
Ah, bless your heart, Clyde.
A big part of the Wildlife Recovery Center is Phil St. Luke. He's one of several mentally challenged adults who care for the injured animals.
All right, Clyde. Yes, you're my man. I learned what I never learned before. to get the feel how to do different things with animals and just relax when he tells me. When Robin tells me, I have to listen closely because it's important to me today.
The Wildlife Center is a volunteer organization run by donations and some government assistance. Campbell and his wife Sylvia make their living caring for the adults.
Well, it's a good combination. It helps everybody all around. It helps these people because they like to be with animals. It's very soothing for them, and they like to know that they're needed and wanted themselves. Plus, of course, it helps the animals. There's some extra help there to help them to feed them.
I did really well, Ted. Wasn't watching where I was going.
Beautiful.
That's Peggy, and that's Bonnie, and that one over there is Gloria.
Of all the animals here, which is the one that you like the most?
These ones.
You like, why?
Because they talk a lot.
And his name is what?
Benji.
Benji, and the other one?
Benji too.
It is the work with eagles that gives the Recovery Center its reputation. 60 bald and golden eagles came here last year. I noticed you're feeding them.
I feed them fish. Fish.
Injured eagles learn to fly again in a big barn, the largest of its kind in North America. And the center has a remarkable recovery rate.
We have to develop their muscles again. And in this building we can do this. It's a long enough flight cage where we can exercise the wings.
For this lucky eagle, he's got all the exercise he needs. 6 months after the bird was shot, Campbell is releasing him off a nearby mountain. Bob Nixon, CBC News, near Parksville.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver Inbox. CBC Vancouver is the exclusive media partner of the Jade Music Festival, October 18th to the 20th. The festival features a variety of events that showcase Chinese-Canadian music and entertainment. And on October 21st, support youth arts education with Gloria Makarenko at Splash, Arts Umbrella's 41st annual gala and art auction. Tickets at artsumbrella.com.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And Darius Madavi joins us with a look at the forecast. Darius, the storm has been taking quite a few days. What's the status of the outlook for it?
Fortunately, it does seem to be moving out of the area where it would be giving us a lot of trouble, but it did not spare us yesterday. Remember, on Sunday, most of the rain was concentrated on the west coast. We saw 80 to 90 millimeters that day. And then yesterday we saw, on Monday, we saw around close to 100 millimeters for the North Island. Looks like history has repeated itself yesterday with, once again, the West Coast getting 80 to 90 millimeters and the North Island getting over 100 millimeters in some places. So some massive amounts of rainfall. Fortunately, it does seem to be easing off. We're going to get less rain from many of these areas as we head into the end of this week. So a bit of good news there. We didn't get any reports of flooding, so it seems like it might have just been a bit of good news in terms of the drought and fire situation. Probably a fire season ender, as people were saying. I know some people were disappointed, especially here in Victoria and in Vancouver, about how the first storm of the season didn't really pan out, but really just depends where you were, because I think parts of the island were definitely hit pretty hard. Now, earlier today, we got a little bit more rain in Vancouver, but not too much, really just a drizzle. And if we look at temperatures, they have stayed suppressed as a result of that storm. They will start to come up a little bit as we head into the weekend, but still pretty low tomorrow. Probably our lowest day in a while at 13 for Vancouver. Come up a little bit Friday, and then a little bit warmer on Saturday as the sun starts to come out. So a bit of good news for those who want to get outside this weekend. If you want to take a look at the rainfall forecast for what we have ahead over the next 48 hours, plenty of snow actually coming for the peaks, but just a bit more rain, especially in the south and around Fort St. John. But that should start to ease off into Friday and then dip a lot by the weekend. A lot less rain across the province. Tomorrow, we just got to get through with most of these are chances of showers, by no means guaranteed, just scattered showers popping up. Potential for some thunderstorms in the southeast, so be on the lookout for that. And here in Vancouver, we get to see a couple more days of rain and then sunny weekend. And then possibly the rain returning next week, but at least it gives us the weekend.
You timed that out just perfectly. Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
And that is your late news for this Wednesday. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download our free CBC News app. And you can always get the latest online. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.